Hello and welcome to How to Build an AI Thinking Partner. I'll be your host today, Nick Milo. I'm so excited that you're here. There's so much to cover. This is a really exciting time when it comes to our own thinking and how that can be supported and amplified with AI. Now, there are a lot of pitfalls, there are a lot of traps. We're going to cover those, but there's also a lot of promise, a lot of potential, and a lot of things that we can do right now that improve the quality of our thinking experiences and what we can accomplish. So we'll be showing that all today. There is a little bit of housekeeping, starting with I'd love to introduce you to my two other co-pilots, and we'll kick it off. I'll pass the mic over to Keaton Sondriel, who's head of community and experience operations. Keaton, take it away.
Hi, everyone. It is so great seeing you all here today and connecting in the chat already. I am going to be supporting the event throughout all of it here, especially in the Zoom chat. And if you have any questions for Nick later on after the hour mark, we're going to be opening it up for an extended Q&A session for a while too. You can ask your question in the Q&A tab at the bottom of your Zoom window, or for those streaming on YouTube, in the YouTube chat where my colleague Dan, who you'll meet shortly, will be following as well. With that, I can't wait to get started. I'm going to hand it back over to you, Nick, but we'll see you guys in the chat.
Thank you, Keaton. Yes, we are live here. We're also live on YouTube. There are people from all over the world. It's amazing to see who's showing up in the live chat, where you're at. Scott, I'm near you. This is from New York City, and I'm going to pass the microphone over to Head of Sales and Solutions, Dan Lardy. Dan, how are you doing?
I'm better than yesterday. Yes, looking forward to today, guys. And I'm here to support everybody to have a great experience as well alongside Keaton. So I'll be monitoring. If you're on YouTube, I'll be checking the live chat right here. If you have questions that you can't ask live, you can email us at hello@linkingyourthinking.com. We'll be answering you there, making sure we got your back. All right, let's look forward, enjoy the session, and let's go, go, go. Back to you, Nick.
All right. Thank you, Dan. Okay, so we have a lot to cover. There's a whole agenda. There's so much that I want to show you, and I want to make sure that we cover as much as possible in this 60-minute session. This is the Linking Your Thinking AI session. Like if you attend one session, if you want to understand how we're thinking about AI and how that's different from how most people on the web right now are thinking about AI, this is the session. We're going to cover that. We're going to show you practical tools, techniques, we're cutting edge system that will allow you to take the principles of local, of markdown, of plain text files where that you own. We're going to take all of these principles and translate them in a way that also works with AI. That's really important. And just actually more important than that is we're going to take all the principles of linking your thinking, we're going to take all of that, the ways that we have our own thought surface, our own voice come out, our own expressions. Those are the things that matter most to us here. We're going to preserve all that as we incorporate AI in practical, tangible, and sometimes strategic ways. There is a way to cross this chasm. I'm excited to show you. So without further ado, let's get into a bit of the presentation. Now, just so you know, the live chat is a place that you can type at any time. There'll be specific times that I ask you to go there, and you might have to wait until I say, okay, just wait until we hit enter. And then that way it'll help with accessibility. Everyone can hit enter. We'll see all those responses rolling in, and we'll review them together. So we'll get there momentarily, but first, this session is called How to Build an AI Thinking Partner. Start linking your AI so it's set up for a lifetime. And the first thing that we want to do, make sure that we're all facing the same direction, is what is your current approach to using AI tools? Because we're coming into this session from radically different places, not just radically different locations across the globe, but actually different approaches to how we're considering interacting with AI. So the first one on the far left here, if we go through this continuum, is avoiding use. I prefer not to use AI tools. If you're on this call, maybe you're here, but there probably won't be too many. You won't be the majority here, and that's perfectly fine either way. Then there's reluctantly using. I use them sometimes, but I have reservations. Followed by that, practically using. I use AI tools when they're helpful for specific tasks, and enthusiastically using. I actively seek out AI tools and integrate them into my work. Or I haven't had much opportunity to use AI tools yet. So that's understandable. And if you're just curious, that's great. We're going to focus on these top four, and now we're going to open up a poll. So Dan is just about to unlock a poll. You'll see it on screen. There it is. This is an opportunity for you to say which of these four is the way that is your current approach to using AI tools. The results are coming in. We're already at 60%. All right, lovely, lovely, lovely. 76%, 78%. All right, we're about to close this in 3, 2, 1. Sharing results. And here we go. So basically tied, we have practically using and enthusiastically using. None in avoiding use, and 13 in that reluctantly using category. I'd say about a year ago, a year, 18 months ago, I was probably in reluctantly using, but I have graduated to practically using. And let's get rid of that poll. So I went from here over to here. Here's the thing though. Practically using is where I want to get everybody. That means that if you're reluctantly using or avoiding use, I just want to shift you over one. I just want to shift you over to this one. Or if you're here, I want to shift you over to here. And it works the other way. If you're over enthusiastically using, and that was the biggest group, or tied for first, I actually want to scale it back just a little bit. That enthusiasm can get us burnt out. It can take us to look at the new, the shiny, and the fragile, and we can lose sight of the big picture. So I actually want us all to kind of think about how are we using AI in practical terms today? Yes, I mean, we can be enthusiastic about it. I get it. But if we're overly enthusiastic, there are a lot of negatives that can come from such a fast moving field. Okay, so the big three problems when using AI. Now, there are many problems, but I just want to cover the big three. Number one, especially for the group that's live on this call, hundreds of you, it's thinking for me. Misused AI can replace a person's critical thinking. Has this happened to you in any form or factor where you're just using it and suddenly you're like, wait a second, it's kind of starting to guide me or make me think in a certain way? I think that's our number one fear. There are ways to get past this. So if this is you, don't worry, there are ways to get past this. It's overwhelmingly, it's overwhelming for me. AI generated text is unfamiliar and overwhelming. So this is a big surprise, I think. Not so much for this personal knowledge management crowd, but for a lot of users, they're like, I like it, but why do I feel worse afterwards? Has this been you ever? It's like, I don't, I mean, that started good, but now I feel like, what's going on? I'm overwhelmed. In a nutshell, you can ask a question to AI. You can ask a prompt, 10 words you type on a keyboard. You hit enter. Then what comes back? 100 words, 500 words, 1,000 words. And then you have to read that. Even if you're skimming, then you ask another question, 10 more words that you type, and you get another 1,000 words back. This is a bad ratio. This is a horrible ratio. Well, 1 to 100 ratio, your words to outside words that you have to ingest to read, or else it's just stacking and weighing you down. Huge problem with AI is the overwhelming aspect of it. And then last, it's not working for me. It's failing me. It's not working for me. Generic AI won't work for a lot of us. AI with context rot, which no matter what, it's going to happen at different times. That will also fail and it will frustrate. So how do we identify that and how do we solve for it? We're going to solve specifically for generic AI during this call. Context rot is something that we kind of have to build an intuitive sense from using the tool for a while. But once we identify, there are ways to solve that. And again, with the AI OS system that we'll show later, it's going to be solving for all these things in different ways, along with one of our other frameworks. There's a little hint, foreshadowing of what's going to solve each of these problems. below. Okay, we'll keep it moving. There are traps as well. They're not just problems, but now there are traps. And there are three big cognitive traps when using AI. The first one we just covered, cognitive debt, unprocessed inputs, and they're overwhelming us. That's not a good feeling. It leads to cognitive overload. At that point, we cannot function at the level that we want to. There's something else that happens. As we're overloaded, as we're tired, as we're relying more and more on AI, we can get to a point where we rely less and less on the people around us. And rely means a lot of things. It also means being challenged, being surprised, having fun, things that are just uniquely human. If we give those things up, cognitive isolation is the result. We start to replace our human partners and friends and thinking partners, all that with AI. And then we have cognitive surrender. We're tiredly, blindly accepting AI generated answers. Now, this seems like an extreme case, like one step removed from that term AI psychosis. But I want to argue that cognitive surrender is something that is much sneakier. You can ask a question, and if you are just tired enough, you can start to accept it in this sort of blind, oh, AI knows best sort of way, and that can get us in trouble. The good news is there are also words down here that we'll get to that can help us overcome each of these cognitive traps. Integrate, integrate, discern. Okay, we'll get to those shortly. But first, I just want to give a little, and this will be a brief history of the unexpected insight. So, how do these AI models work? We're not going to get lost in the details, but the big thing to know is that there is a way to give AI to get better results from AI. So, how do we get better results from AI? There's this thing that Google Research and a lot of others were trying to do, which was to improve the medical benchmarks of AI so it could match a good doctor, which meant over 90% accuracy in diagnosis. Long story short, in 2018, there were only 10 million parameters of data in these models. 2 years later, 10 billion. Wow, that's a huge advance. 2 years after that, 500 billion. And we can see that this is starting to go up. So now if you look at the first two red circles, what led to this huge increase in accuracy? More data, right? Well, wrong. Not more data, better data. So researchers did two things where they applied very specific data sets. Think like the SATs, but for doctors. Only 1,800 sample prompts. Specific data led to the most massive increase of all when it came to the accuracy of AI. This has huge implications. Again, they took it further. Now they were doing even more instruction prompt tuning with specific data. All told, they got AI to be on par with a clinician when it comes to the accuracy of diagnosis. Number one, the unexpected insight is that there's more data, results improved until they didn't. So what does that mean? Not more data is needed, better data. And when it comes to us, that means your data. When your data is under your control, you can then give it to AI. You can give AI the exact instructions that it needs to give you the best results. This is the unexpected insight of AI. If you're using any sort of AI web chat that's the generic chat, that you're missing out. That's the MySpace of our times. Like let's get on with it. Like that's the old way to do things. Um, and it gets subpar results. And if you want to really transform what's possible, you'll need to figure out what parts of your data you're willing to share. And we will cover that on your terms. We'll cover exactly what that looks like for you because everyone will have a different policy. So this brings up a huge point. Have you heard, if you're in the Obsidian communities or tangential to them, file over app? It's the idea that files will outlive any application. The same is true for AI. Files will outlive any AI. Own your ideas, own the format, and rent the AI. So here is at the very top the philosophy that was coined by Capano, who is the CEO of Obsidian. And it's the idea that if you want to create digital artifacts that last, they must be files under your control in formats that are easy to retrieve and read. You want to use tools that can give you this freedom. So, own your ideas. What does that look like? Can you look at the files that are yours? If you're using a program like Notion, you can't see your files. You can download your files. That's better than nothing. You can't see them. Do you really own them? That's a question that I would like to ask. Own the format. All computers can read Markdown. There's a fascinating backstory of why that is, but long story short, these plain text files can literally be read by any computer from 1963 onward. That is pretty wild. That means that in 2063, you'll also be able to read these files. That's amazing. The same cannot be said for Evernote. Rent the AI. Apps are ephemeral, but your files have a chance to last. So when we rent the AI layer, that's fine. ChatGPT is currently out of favor. More people are using Claude today. And you know what's funny? I always think to myself, oh yeah, Claude's the one. But what's going to do I really think in 2 years it's still going to be Claude? Like there's a part of me that does, and that's the biases that we have. But I know better if I think about it logically, and it won't be Claude, it'll be something else, or it will be multiple apps. And that's fine if we're renting the AI and we own these other two areas. Okay, that brings us to AI OS, an operating system for working with AI. Here's how it works. In the center, you have an Ideaverse. In the middle, you have your translation layer. And in the outer ring, you have your AI layer. If anyone's familiar with the term paste layers by Stuart Brand, the idea is the Ideaverse is the one that doesn't change. It's the solid one. It's the core. It's yours. It's personal. It's private. The translation layer will update every now and then as you decide how you want to work with AI and different things you want it to do for you. But then we get to the AI layer, which is the most interchangeable, the most disposable, the most swappable. So a few little details here. The Ideaverse layer, that is your Ideaverse, which could be your PKM system, your ecosystem of linked notes, and it will exist with or without AI. The middle layer is the translation layer. It's the layer that teaches AI how to navigate your thinking and work with you. And then we have the AI layer, and this is the interchangeable layer, Claude, ChatGPT, or whatever comes next. This is the solution to permissioning AI, to owning your files, and to figuring out exactly how you want to work with AI in a sustainable, future-proof way. And here's why it works. Each layer allows a different level of permissions. No one else can see my Ideaverse, but I can share files from here to other people over here, and we'll see that maybe near the end. I don't want to talk about that too much, but this is protected, and it's up to me how much of that is shared to the AI layer and to any other people layers outside. Next, AI OS frees you from any single app maker. Just this week or the past 2 weeks, I can't even count how many policy changes have happened. If anyone used OpenClaw, well, then Claude shut that down, and then Claude changed how it does tokens, and Claude's changing so much. And this is really scary if you develop a dependency on any one app. But when the AI layer becomes disposable, swappable, it's a totally different feeling. It's like liberation. It's like bring on what's next. Let the free market advance the way it will, regardless of how you think about it. It's going to do what it's going to do. And then let's get to those local models a couple of years from now, and then we won't even have to worry about it. That's kind of my take on it. But for now, for us on the frontier, for us who are curious and wanting to do a lot, we are using these app makers today, but we don't have to tomorrow. And I think that's a really exciting premise. And the last major point, AI OS gives you confidence, control, and the most valuable thing of all, trust. Trust. Where, like, trust before AI was like, where did I put that note? Where did I put that file? Trust is expanding now. It's like, and who has access to read this? Who has access to write here? How can I trust that things won't change when I'm sleeping? Or how can I have it trust in this system? There are ways to get that trust. And again, we'll talk about that momentarily. AIOS allows you to work and interact with AI on your terms. Own the Ideaverse layer, own the translation layer, rent the AI layer. All right, let's keep it going. How many of you, and let's just turn to the live chat real fast. I've been talking for a while. It's always good to hear from everybody else. How are you approaching the privacy policy? How are you approaching what you share with AI and what you don't? The next slide, we'll talk about three buckets, three ways to consider how you do this. But I'm curious in the live chat, how are you approaching what you share with AI and what you don't? So now, if you'd like, start typing, but try not to hit enter. Just type for a little bit, and we'll give that about 10, 15 seconds, and then we'll hit enter together. Okay, when you're ready, go ahead and hit enter. Okay, they're flying in. Keaton, could you read off a few?
Definitely. Um, Confidential. I'm not working through that now, but I'm currently very guarded. I'm not worrying about it too much yet. I want to learn first as a priority. I'm approaching it very cautiously. I avoid personal stuff. I'm not sharing much at all. I'm sharing with much caution, clear context, nothing more. This has been my biggest struggle. This issue has been, and again, there's dozens and dozens more here too. I appreciate you all sharing so honestly here.
And that's the type of group that linking your thinking attracts and that we have here. And it's a wonderful community. If this was like, let's say, live hosted on Twitter, and there's nothing wrong with this, but that group would not have the same privacy concerns by and large. Yes, they would overlap, but there would definitely be a shift. There'd be an attitude of maximalizing right now. Maximalizing? I feel like I'm adding a syllable there. Maximizing, being a maximalist, what can be done in AI. But if we want to be careful, here's a way to do it on your terms. Now, we can't cover the technical details, but you can accomplish this. Think of the first approach as the most liberal approach. It's the auto approach, automatic. You give AI access to your Ideaverse and any other knowledge folders that you might have on your computer. If it has access to a folder, it can read there, and you'll want to assume it can write there too. So even if you tell it only read, don't write, just assume it will always be able to do both. Read the words and actually write and change and edit and even delete those words. So just be mindful of that. Over on the far right, we have the manual approach. So this is high privacy. This is where you say, I'm going to have a completely separate AI folder. That's the only folder AI can look at. And the only files in that folder I will manually put there. Hey, and guess what? That's still really valuable because as you throw manually more and more files in there, now you're building up a context for your AI. And it can be one where you trust what it knows and what it doesn't know. And then the middle, I'll give a +1 in the chat if anyone knows that belt and suspenders, what that actually means, like the belt and suspenders phrase. It's an older phrase. I think it's hilarious. Keaton brought it up recently and how he approaches things. Like, yeah, I'm a belt and suspenders guy, and I think it's a hilarious metaphor. So I'm gonna hand it over to Keaton in just a moment. But it's like, what does that mean? The way I would describe it is a belt's not enough. You also have to wear the suspenders. It's like you're backing up your backups, that sort of attitude. Keaton, you do something really cool here. Uh, Obviously, we cover this in the upcoming course, Linking Your AI, but can you just talk about a little bit what this looks like to you, this cloned idea versus like, what are you doing here?
Definitely. As John notes in the chat, I double up on safety. I am always paranoid that AI, whether it's a rogue prompt, whether it's maybe a loose prompt from me, whatever it is, might modify some of my own notes. And to that point, my personal Ideaverse is just for me. AI doesn't interact with it at all. I use a separate tool that makes an additional copy of my vault, and I just let the AI get access to certain parts of that rather than directly part of my notes. And that way I know that it's never modifying any of my personal notes, and I can just always trust that my vault's filled with my thinking, and anything that I bring in from AI is just intentionally brought in as needed. And again, it's the belt and suspenders for me. I'm just a little extra careful with it. It hasn't built that trust yet. Maybe it will in the future, but for now, this is where I'm at, and this is how I navigate it. Over to you, Nick.
Yeah, that was great. And I think that's what's really exciting for me because before we could really tackle AI responsibly as a company at Linking Your Thinking, we wanted to make sure that we could address all of these concerns. Last year, we put out a course that was private just to our members, AI plus PKM. What's wonderful is the only thing out of date are the tutorials showing Claude Code, but the big things, the big ideas have all stayed timeless. And it shows us that we're on the right track and gives us confidence to put together Linking Your AI, the course, and to share our best practices with you. A couple things just to note here. Ensure the app maker isn't training on your data. If that matters to you, it does to me. Claude Cowork does not train on your data. At least we have to trust them. At some point, you have to trust what they're going to say and just hope that there are some mavens out there. It's a Malcolm Gladwell term I'm trying to reach for. The people who are actually going to stress test that promise of theirs. Assume that anywhere AI can read, it can also write. And I should also have written here, end delete. Understand how long your data lives on the app maker's servers. So again, if we talk about Claude Cowork, Claude Code, that's 30 days. And that might change tomorrow. So just something to keep in mind. My AI OS, that's the system. But before we can build our own AI thinking partner, we need to get clear on the thinking part. Okay, so let's get over to that. IDI, these are the three rules of engaging with AI. Talking about it came out last year with IDI. I've only grown more passionate about these three rules. They're not the hard rules, they're the soft rules. These are soft rules for how you go about thinking with AI. Honestly, they apply to life in general, but it starts with imagine, and you're asking what if. It goes to discern. When you get something back from AI, you're saying, hey, that's not true. That's huge. That's not true, but it's still useful. And then integrate. How are you taking all that stuff and overcoming cognitive debt? You have to integrate. That's the only way out of cognitive debt if you're getting too much from AI without abandoning that project that really matters to you. When you don't have imagination, it leads to you just treating AI like a fancy search engine. And that's fine. I use it that way too, but there's a lot more that we can do with it. When you don't have discernment, it leads to people who just copy and paste their way to a mushy mind. It's like, hey, tell me what to do here. Tell me what to do there. Okay. Now we're losing our critical thinking. We're losing our taste and our voice. That's the worst. And that's what matters most to me and to many of us here. And if you don't do the integration, it means you're just having really expensive conversations with an AI chat buddy. And that's fine too. I like to ask it Tolkien trivia questions, and I'm learning a lot that way. At the same time, if you're trying to integrate it for things that matter deeply to you, that you're trying to accomplish in your life, you need to integrate. Okay, let's keep it going. What did we just cover? We covered the AI OS with the three circles, and then we covered IDI, the three rules of how to engage with AI. These are the fundamental foundational pieces that will always work with AI. I can't see that changing. Definitely IDI will last forever. Now, what you can do, these are things a thinking partner can do for you. And let's expand that. So this whole session is about how to build a thinking partner. We have some live demos coming up. That's exciting. We'll get to those shortly. We're almost at the halfway mark of this session. I'm kind of curious, how's it going? I'm sure that you're putting some questions in the live chat for our Q&A after the 60-minute mark. I'll be excited for those. but I'm actually going to live demo a few of these things. But I want us to think more holistically about AI. Now, I know it's a bit of semantics, but AI isn't just, doesn't have to just be an assistant. It's great as an assistant, but it can do more. It can be a thinking partner. And I have found that the best way to broaden out the definition of what's possible for AI and to unleash your imagination is to think of it through four different archetypes. We're going to go through each one together. So let's start in this upper left quadrant with the synthesizer archetype. So this is about synthesizing information, piecing things together. This is using AI as a research assistant, a pattern finder, an information architect, and a janitor. Things that you can do. These are just some examples that I've done, and there's so many more. I'm curious what you do from this synthesizer lens. But have you done deep research? Have you done a deep research on a topic or just in your notes? Have you set up a weekly review? Something that we cover in the course as well. One of my favorites, and that we covered last year and was huge, was the Metadata Janitor. If you have a lot of notes and you want to, let's say, take advantage of a feature in Obsidian called Basis, came out last year. I think it was last year. Time flies. Yeah, it was last fall. And but you need certain metadata. Well, now you can work with AI and say, you can spec it all out, you can plan it together, make a backup, of course, and then have it do this work over thousands of notes. I literally saved, because I did the math, I saved 80 hours, 80 hours of time. Like honestly, I would have never gotten to that because I just would not have put my head down and said, I need to update all these tags. I need to do all this. But with AI, doing it for me, it opened up new opportunities for how I looked at all of my notes. And it's just helping me how I look at them. This is a net positive. There's no downside. I'm not having it make connections for me. I'm not having it link my thinking. All it's doing is making the metadata organized and uniform so I can resurface notes in good context with other notes. It's really cool. So metadata janitor, whole lesson on that. And then micro wikis. If anyone, give a +1 in the chat if anyone is familiar with Andre Carpathi's LLM wikis. Same idea here, micro wikis. That caught like wildfire a week and a half ago on Twitter for good reason, but it also has very significant limitations. And if we in the Q&A, we can probably cover that as well. Now, I have a couple questions that we'll get to in just a moment. But first, with Metadata Janitor, here's what you can do. You can hit the dictate button on your computer and you can say, hey, Claude, hey, ChatGPT, hey, Gemini, hey, Frank, organize my metadata. And boom, you're starting a conversation. And the end product of that conversation is it saved me 80 plus hours. Now, live demo that we'll get to in 10 minutes, help me figure out my lower back. Like I need to articulate all the complex things that are giving me lower back issues. And I feel like I can't get it all done in the primary care physician when he's trying to rush me out. It's like, help me figure this thing out. I'll show the demo of this live. But now let's go to the live chat without hitting enter, start typing. How can you use AI as a synthesizer? This is where if you just get a few people, like a few people talking, a few ideas on screen, what's it do? It gets your imagination going. We can't help it. We're that's how we are as humans. So how can you use AI as a synthesizer? Without hitting enter, we're typing and we'll give that another 10, 15 seconds. Uh, okay, when you're ready, go ahead and hit enter. Okay, Keaton, could you read off a few of these?
All right. Brainstorming, seeing biases. I have a few notes with a few years of Obsidian that I'd like to standardize. File organization, storage format standardization, getting ideas for topics to explore for learning, and one more here too. Go through all the new files I created and clean them up. And again, dozens and dozens more here too. These are great. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, these are great. And the good part about the live chat like this is it's stimulating ideas for all of us. It's like, oh yeah, maybe I could try that. I'll put that on the list. Okay, next one. We'll go a little faster here. The producer archetype. This is the core one. The core, I mean, synthesizer and producer, both of these top-down methods are the core things that we do with AI, but that's not to say that we don't do anything with the bottom two that we'll cover. For now, the producer. Get things done. Meetings. In this case, hey, help me triage my emails. Like I really get behind on that because I put so much effort into like kind of my creative efforts and my writing and all this stuff. I get behind on email. Help me triage this. Just like put it in front of me. Tell me what's important, who I should respond to. Maybe kind of tell me what a good response would be, and then I'll take it from there and I'll be off to the races. I'll make it my own. Scheduling, transcripts, and the live demo. Give me a morning briefing. Now I can see my priorities. And it was really helpful yesterday. Yesterday, that specific day for a specific reason, and I'll cover that in the live demo. Now in the live chat, fast. How can you use AI as a producer? So without hitting enter, how can you use AI as a producer? 15 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Hit enter. All right. Keaton, could you read a few?
All right, they are coming in. Briefings that integrate all the inputs and help me get oversight and make decisions. All of that mundane, easy to automate. Organizing my workflow and order priorities, a starting point for a daily plan, a summary, and again, dozens and dozens more of these here too. These are great.
I love seeing those. Let's go on to the creative. So this is to support your expressions. I have certain rules when it comes to how I interact with AI in this way to preserve my own voice. Everyone's going to have a different policy. Mine is a pretty strong policy. I don't want it writing for me, but I love that it can proofread for me. I do enjoy it as a sounding board. I get always available feedback. And I've given it my writing style guide. Here's how I write. Now, before I hit publish, before I hit send, like check me on it. And I'm not the best visually, and sometimes I just want a mock up. Maybe I could, with this visual guide, now when I ask you to do something, you'll get results that have my colors, all that stuff. So those are some ideas. Now, what am I missing is something I'll ask, and then I'll send some text because I'm moving fast and I have a lot of blind spots. One, I could wait a day and then come back to it with fresh eyes. But this is a way where I can close this loop, this adding, relating, communicating loop, and then come back to the material faster. Like, oh, okay, I don't apply necessarily the feedback, but just getting feedback is a magical thing. And it gets you thinking and it keeps you moving. So we'll just do a quick live demo of Proof My Writing. So the email that has gone out this morning and the day before, I was just like, Proof My Writing, and it found typos and it followed my style guide. So my writing's always personally written, but it's professionally published. All right. We're going to actually just think to ourselves, imagine how can you use AI as a creative? And then we're going to immediately go to inner guide, support your reflections. Here's another one. Don't reflect for me. Like, what's the point? But I want at times AI to be able to support my reflections. Here's one from the synthesizer. Synthesizer grabbed a bunch of research. Now, can I create a skill with AI? We'll get to that terminology probably more in the question and answer. But can I create a health assistant and say, okay, now with all this information, like help me fix my lower back. Let's turn this into a project. Let's kind of, manage this. Knowing this plus everything else you know about me, what should we do here? So that's one. A dossier builder, personal review, habit tracker. You'll see in a moment this dossier builder. Help me build my AIOS me file, my me.md. That's the heart of the AI OS. There was a question in the live chat. What's the translation layer? At the heart of the translation layer is this. And we'll show you how you can make it. So another question, not to answer now in the live chat, but to continue to keep going. All right, now it's time for the live demo. We're right where we want to be. We'll keep things along. I have about just over 10, 12 minutes of live demo, hopefully, and then we'll start to close this out and go from there. So I actually get to share my entire desktop, and it'll be messy for a moment, so bear with me. And then we'll get to everything. So I have a version of Claude on the left, and this is our live session today. And now we're at the live demos. So we're talking about the synthesizer, and I want to map something that's unknown, help me synthesize something. So what it ended up becoming was this note. How can I reduce my back pain? But how it normally starts is if you have an AI OS, which I'll cover momentarily, then here's what you can do. You can say, and we'll just create a new task and I'll start from scratch. Hey, I've been experiencing lower back pain. I can't sleep on my back. And after walking for a while, let's say an hour and a half, I get a lot of lower back pain. I don't think I should feel that way at my age. Help me figure this out. Okay, so for that, you can use a tool like WhisperFlow or Super Whisper, and it'll do its work. Eventually, it will come out with it'll come with some replies. That's worth paying attention to. It's going to give me some ideas. Now that's going to spur a conversation, and I'm going to go, oh, not quite that, more this, or yes, those two things. And that reminds me, now I'm going to add this, and then it goes back and forth. And so by having this type of conversation, you can really go far in a hurry. But I can do something else. I have a hotkey, SSK, and this tells Claude exactly what to do. Read the me.md file, and then check two other parts of AI OS. So now instead of generic results just from that little bit, you'll see, oh, what just happened over here on the far right? It immediately knew to read those files. And now it's looking at a lot of personalized notes. It's going to come, oh, look at this. Other notes, gluteal amnesia, posture map of content, breathing exercise. So now it's doing so much more than generic AI. And whatever I get back is going to be even more powerful. So let's just fast forward a few times. What then happens is I say something to the effect of, if I go to this pre-baked version, copy this verbatim in a new note as a project, make it a project note, promote this to a project. And what it ends up doing is saying done. And it creates it exactly where I want it as a project. And it links up to other things. Now, I typically don't want to trust any link it does. I like to actually delete them. But a couple of links up to this are actually pretty clear, like link up to my health. Okay, I can live with that. And then I said to it, hey, I noticed you didn't put in the conversation verbatim, including my initial prompt. So then it puts it in there. And now we can go ahead and check that out. So if I go over to my Obsidian over here, lower back recovery, we can see my prompt from the pre-baked version and the advice right here. And it's been promoted to a project and it's linking up to these two other things. So if I click on projects, and this is kind of beyond the scope of what we have to cover, but now I can see lower back recovery. It's currently ranked 3, and I can see that lower back recovery shows up right here. Maybe I can increase it to 5.2, and we'll see it'll jump right to the top. And now it's up here. So this is a way that I can work on any new thing and then just spin up a new project, have it ranked with all my other active projects in the moment, all holistically, getting fantastic feedback. That starts as a synthesizer and it actually bleeds into producer because we copy verbatim and we create it into a new project note. And then we opened up projects and we saw it next to other projects. Does that all make sense? And if I wanted to, yeah, we'll keep it there for now. I have to keep us on the rails just a little bit because this is a live personal environment. So sometimes I just pull something out of the oven and that's what we have. Is this helpful? You can't get this from an online agent, not in the same way, and especially not a month later, not a year later. When you're like, what, I had something on my lower back. Where do I go? Now I find that note and let me show you this. Pretend a year has gone by. First, I always tell it my little hotkey here, um, which, oh, it's being cut off a little bit. That's funny. But in this case, what I get to do is I can go to this note and I can just copy the file path, the link, the note in any way, um, and I'll say go to this note and remind me what's going on. It's been a while. I need a refresher. So you do something like that, and then you're right back into that project, that big effort of yours, and you're back to where you need to be. And that's just an amazing thing. All under your control, local files. The AI layer can change. I don't have to ask, just Claude. And in fact, I asked a currently a local free model. I think it's called Gemma or Gemma. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's by Google. It's a lot slower, but it also gave me quality advice and it could also reference the note that I copy and pasted into it. When you own your data and own your files, it allows you so much more freedom with AI. Okay, we really do need to get moving forward. I just get excited. So now let's talk a little bit about the holistic briefing. So for this one, if you look at my recent notes, here's yesterday's holistic briefing. And you can see how I have this shaped up. Every morning at 6 a.m., I'm probably still sleeping. The holistic briefing is made for me. It will sort my active projects by rank and will have comments, what's going on each thing based on what it's looking through my Gmail, if you're comfortable with that, my calendar, my team ClickUp account, and all my notes here. 4 different sources help me get this holistic briefing. Book momentum, what's going on with the book? What's next? Intellectual life, what's going on here? What might I be forgetting? Taxes today. Oh, this was huge. Because of this reminder, I made sure to email my accountant and make sure that we got that tax extension, that US tax day extension in on time. So thanks, AI. That was helpful. I think the accountant did it anyways, but this is that way to make sure that those things that are slipping through the cracks are no longer doing it. And then what's next? Text Cassie about the tax extension. So easy to do. So this is how the producer can really start their day on fire. And if you're like me, I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of different things I want to do. It's so great to get those reminders so things don't just languish and then you forget about them. Okay, moving on. Creative. Make this even bigger. Proofread my writing, like my newsletter. So I've created a writing style guide and it actually caught 10 typos before I hit publish. Now to show you this, pop over into my pre-baked version in Claude, proof my emails. So I say, hey, I just write proof and I give what needed to be proofed. Let's close this one so we can see this more largely. And this is the email that went out this morning. I was working on it last night. And because I copy and pasted from my own work using screenshot, it was actually saying AL, AL, as opposed to AI. It caught that. And I would have never, it just kind of looks the same, right? And like this one, allows me to do what no one else, allows me due to what no one else is doing. And I needed to switch those two around. So thanks to my AI proofreader, I was able to get it correct when I sent it to you this morning. You'll see how AIOS allows me to do what no one else is doing, which we'll show you in 10 minutes. Okay, so that's pretty wild. And then it's saying some other things, like, are you okay with Ideaverses being lowercase? Yeah, I am. But can you see how helpful this is? I don't have the time to get, hey, Keaton, hey, Dan, hey, team, can you look at this? I can actually just spin up the AI proofreader to do that, and mission accomplished. It's not writing for me. It's always personally written, but it can be professionally published. And then inner guide, the Dossier Builder. So this is pretty cool. So in this case, I pre-baked one. Read this, always, hey, read the main me.md file, then use the Dossier Builder and create a new dossier for me. So it's looking through my entire Ideaverse. If you're comfortable with that, you might not be. And then it asks a quick question, I answer it, and it creates an entire new me.md file. I just said, hey, call this one the me manual. So it's created 3,000 words that are about me. Now, obviously, I'll double check this, but it's going to be a way to allow AI to give me personalized responses immediately. Me.md is at the heart of the AI OS system. And it even knows that I like Tolkien mentions. So it ends with trying to kind of force fit a Tolkien analogy. So there you have it. Really fast, 4 different demos. Let me just move one thing around to show what is possible live, which is scary, with an AI thinking partner. Not just as an assistant, like as a producer, but as a synthesizer, a creative, and as an inner guide support. So with that, we're going to kind of just get a little bit of an invitation from me and then a little bit from Dan. But I want to invite you to, I mean, typically what we would do now is we would launch a big cohort for 1,500, and that's the amount of value that we're putting into this. But I'm writing a book, and the book has to be the huge time priority over the next few months. So that Simon and Schuster book is the reason that we're putting all this value exclusively into a self-paced course. And it's going to be $500 on May 15th, but right now it's $250. Dan, can I turn it over to you and you can just show the website? Now, don't leave just yet because I turn it, we come back from Dan, I want to show you one more amazing thing, close with a few takeaways, and then we'll get into our prolonged Q&A to make sure that we address some of the questions and ideas that you're having as well. Okay, Dan, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much, Nick. Yes. So looking forward to everybody here learning more about our invitation to you guys. And here we go. This is called Linking Your AI. First of all, thank you so much for joining us in this free session. If what Nick shared with everyone here right here resonated with you, we'd love to invite you to consider joining Linking Your AI. This is a self-paced course that helps you unlock the power of an AI thinking partner that knows how you work and how to support you. It will help you bring your notes, your thinking, and AI together into one system that actually works for you. Right now, you can get it at founders pricing at $250, which is 50% off. And once you purchase, you'll get full access on May 15th, and you'll have locked in the best price possible. The website is right here, linkingyourthinking.com/linking your AI, or you could just scan the QR code right here. And if you have questions beyond what you see on the page, feel free to email us at hello@linkingyourthinking.com. We'll be making sure that you have enough information to make a good decision moving forward. Happy to help. We got your back. And yeah, back to you, Nick.
All right, thank you so much, Dan. That was great. It was short and sweet. I feel like we should push harder for this course that we care so much about. Um, I guess we don't too much. I just want to share a couple extra slides with what you can expect from everything. So this is that pricing card again, and the big deliverables are you'll get the downloadable AIOS starter kit. So this is going to give you sort of like the basic structure. It's not crazy, but it'll just give you a clean structure. You can do it separately from your main space, your main notes, and then you can walk through everything and then decide what you do there. So it's safety first. The interactive thinking partner auto builder. So like, how do you create that me.md file? How do you personalize it? How do you create the vault map, the skill map? How do you create these notes that are part of AIOS? And a lot more. How do you create your own skills, which we'll cover in the Q&A if people are curious about skills. for each of these thinking archetypes. Producer's easy. What about synthesizer? What about creative? What about inner guide? What about some of the things I want to do with producer, but I'm not sure if they're possible? They probably are getting close to being possible. Your me.md, your me manual, your me.md file, like we'll cover that. Your personally built AI workflows. Also, 12 self-paced practical lessons. That's where the heart of this content is online, um, walking you through these things. A properly permissioned AI. We'll definitely be showing all three approaches, including belt and suspenders, so you can see how you can do that yourself. No live sessions, 1 year access, and lock-in founders pricing at $250 during this pre-sale. So there it is. And again, this thing is like, it's a really good deal. So it's something to consider. It'll go to 500, and then potentially those individuals who purchase will get a very special deal if we end up doing our live 2-week cohort in September. I can't promise that, but that is our intention. One more thing, multiple Ideaverses. So this is another way to know that we're onto something. We're onto timeless principles that won't age. Because my AIOS with those 3 concentric circles is the solution for understanding how I can share across my personal notes and our team notes, and it all be properly permissioned. So in the middle, we have the Ideaverse, the translation layer, and the AI layer. And that looks pretty good on its own. But look at this. What's happening here? We're sharing the translation layers with another Ideaverse. But guess what's not being shared? The Ideaverse, your notes itself, that stays separate and private. So we get to allow different shares in different capacities. And this keeps going. So you could have your personal Ideaverse here, team Ideaverse here, and maybe there's like a small family one where you just have a bunch of family notes that you're sharing. They're just plain text notes, but you're keeping track of things that way. Pretty exciting. And let's keep it going. It can look like this. This is your main one. These images are a little powerful, so it's taking a moment. But these are your main set of notes, your main Ideaverse, and then you have these other ones that are here, and you can see how they can be kind of turned on and off, how they can be deprioritized, properly permissioned as they need to be. Okay, so all sorts of different ways. I think I'm really stressing out my keynote with all these cool graphics. So we'll get over to the final example of how this actually works. And for that, I'm going to share my full screen again so you can see how this works in practice, not just theory. This is a simple example of multiple Ideaverses. I'll share my whole desktop. And let's imagine I want us to start from a daily note just because it's simple and say ideas for linking your AI. I have this new idea. I want to show multiple Ideaverses. I want spinning icons as well. What do you think? Okay. Now, it started in my own notes, but then I think to myself, wouldn't it be great if I shared this? So then I can go over to Cowork and I'm going to throw in a different, another folder of permission and say, hey, can you help move this over to the team folder? It's this file. As always, read my, oops, hold on. As always, read this stuff. So in a moment, we're going to see, oh, how this is the team Ideaverse or team folder that we have. And if this all goes well, let me try to move this over here. Then we'll move this over here. So guess what? There's a skill that it's tapping into called the Ideaverse Courier. It's going to move notes back and forth. And as it's working, it says, got it. Now I'm going to throw it into, oh, and funny. This one. Ah, it's like the blue screen of death. Okay, we'll do it another way. I need to show the file path for this one. So we changed it to the team folder and it's still recognizing my old name. That's okay. So what we're going to do now is go to this, and I'll just give this team folder. And oh yeah, here. So as that's finishing, I see we're at the 60-minute mark and I want to keep us on time. So we'll see the result of this momentarily. But thank you so much for attending this session. I have a couple final takeaways and we'll get everyone out of here in just a moment. So here we go. 5 parting thoughts. Keep things practical. Remember the mindsets that we covered today over any specific app tool. They'll come and go. Number 2, your words are always going to matter more than someone else's words or some other entity's words, in this case, AI. Treat your words as the priority. With great power comes great responsibility. As you work through these ideas of what's possible, you're going to butt up against an emerging privacy policy that you have to form. Be ready to ask questions and take your time, which leads to patience. Don't rush into overwhelm. Take it step by step, and then eventually we'll get there. So that's it. I have a couple extra things to show you, but I want to say that thank you so much for attending. If you got something out of this live session, share it. Share linking your thinking with a friend, a colleague, someone who's interested in AI. Would you like a link to this recording? Would you share it? That would help us tremendously. We know we're onto something good. We share on YouTube, we share through my newsletter, but that's about it. So we'd love if you could help expand what we're doing here. This is the right time for someone in your circle to potentially look into what we're coming out with. This course is covering the basics, foundational frameworks, along with implementation, along with customization. We're covering the whole gamut, beginner, intermediate, advanced. If that resonates and if you think it'd be helpful for others, we'd love if you support. So again, Dan, thanks for sharing that link in the live chat again. Soft close. Now let's go back to Ideaverse, multiple Ideaverses. So for this one, let's pick up where we left off. Okay, so now it knows to go in the right spot, and it looks like it did copy this idea over. And if we look in this team Ideaverse, we can see the most recent file is right here. So let me click on it. And wow, without me having to do this, now I could do that. Like I could move one little file, but if I want to do this a lot and I want to do this automatically, this is how it can be done. There's a skill, it can move this note, and now it exists here. And it's like, okay, great. We moved a file around and you opened up another, but now this Obsidian Vault is connected to the team. So I believe Keaton would be able to write a message. Oh, what's this? That wasn't me. Now, okay, so it looks like Keaton's writing something in there and it's starting to update. And I think this is so cool. Keaton's thoughts. This sounds exciting, but I need to see how the icons look. Nice. And then I can come back and I can say, here's what I'm thinking, here's a screenshot, and we can actually go back and forth. So starting from a private Ideaverse, using my AI OS, we can now share information to team Ideaverses, keep the conversations going, keep permissions where they need to be. This is what we're on the frontier of. There are best practices for this, including making sure you have the file path correct. But those are simple fixes and they just take a little bit of tinkering to make sure that you get what the things the way that you'd like them. So I'll stop this share at this time. I think there are like a million questions in the live chat. Let's take a breather, turn over to Keaton and ask, Keaton, what are you noticing?
All right. I have seen some fantastic questions in the chat so far. And again, if you've got one, the Q&A tab at the bottom of Zoom is a great one to use. I've also collected quite a few in the chat. And alongside those, if you're on the YouTube stream, you can ask in the YouTube chat there, and my colleague Dan will be helping field some of those. But Nick, I'd like to start us off with one of the questions, unless there's something else you wanted to show briefly before that.
We're good.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's start off one right here. Nick, how does the translation layer work in the My AI OS?
So I'll show you. So the basics, if we look at this folder area, one of the most important points is that your AI generated notes are separated from the rest of your notes. I'm a huge, huge believer in this because if future you can't tell who wrote what, that's a huge problem. That's a huge, huge problem. Now we don't know what to trust. We don't know what are our words, what's somebody else's words, because our words are just more valuable to us. That's just how it is. So what we have here is AIOS. This is a folder, and you really only need a few subfolders. So at the highest level, how most AI currently works is that it's going to look for a root level file. So you can see that there's this root file called Claude because I'm mostly using Claude Cowork these days. Right next to it is a me file. So guess what Claude says? Go immediately to me.md, and it's right here. Like there's no mistaking, that's where you go. Nothing else needs to be in Claude. I don't want anything else in Claude because that's going to lock me into the Claude ecosystem, and I don't want that. So I go to me.md, and now I have, this is what AI is reading. This is your briefing on who I am, how I think, and how to interact with me. What you'll notice is the translation layer, the most important parts of the layer are right here in this call out and right here. No matter what, AI is going to have an easy time to read and understand where to go. And we saw that with some of the examples over here with look at, this is showing us what has Claude looked at. And we can see it's looking at me.md, vault map, skill map. Those are the things I need. And now for this particular example, it also looked at a skill that we created. I'll show you where the skills are momentarily. But at its heart is a me.md file. It's the README for any other AI for how to interact with you. Now, in my me.md, if we go to the outline view and I expand this just a little bit, it's getting, since I'm zoomed in so much, we can see all these different headers with all this writing underneath. This is the thing that I hand off my playbook and say, like, this is how you're going to work with me. And you can see how some of those look here. Great. Now, before we go into like the vault map and the skill map, which are the other two big notes, this is where everything else lives, AIOS. So in this folder, there are three subfolders. There's a history folder. Think of this as daily notes, but for AI. And it can be any type of time-stamped daily note. Anytime I'm having a conversation, a good example is in earnest when I was doing the low back work. My newest one was this timestamp right here that you can see in the right-hand side. And that's in history. Also in history, the holistic briefings that come in daily. Also in history, daily logs, different logs, anytime I want anything anywhere that I want to save and make sure that AI could reference it, or if I want just to log what a conversation was, it goes to history. I don't think subfolders, any of that. It's history, and that's good enough. Okay, now the two other folders. There's maps. So along with me.md, there are a series of maps and manuals to inform and instruct your AI how to interact with you. So the most important two are going to be the vault map and the skill map. We're playing around with a few others. There's one that I quite like, which is a schedule map to make sure that it's always checking that the schedules are being done properly. That's a little bit more advanced. What you really need is here's how to navigate my notes, and here's what you can do and exactly how to do it. So the vault map, if we open up vault map, we see it says, this is your manual to navigate and work in my Ideaverse. And then if we look at how all the headers and subheaders, we can see how to navigate, how to create notes properly, how to interact with other Ideaverses. So it's all here. This is part of the AIOS. And then let's go to the skill map. It's giving very clear instructions about skills. Skills empower your AI to work for you in very specific targeted ways. So AI as a producer, what do we have? Holistic briefing shows up there. AI as an inner guide assistant. We have Dossier Builder. We have the Health Helper. These are different things that I've created over time. They exist here. These are the core parts of the AI OS system, and there are some other ones. And yes, this is just, I see one right away. These are the things in the course. AI Builder is huge. I mean, that's when we're talking about the interactive uh, thinking partner builder, like the auto builder. That's a really, really important one. Now, finally, we have the actual skills, the skills that are being created. Ideaverse Courier, we just recently used. Now, this might look intimidating. Don't worry, I'm not writing most of this in here because it's not for me. It's for the assistant. I'll just tidy up a few areas. In this case, I will review. I was like, okay, let me make sure the triggers are correct so I can say the right things. Like how am I speaking when I want a note move to the team folder? I could actually add that. I could say move to team folder. So it gets team folder together. And this is like how to use it, the known destination. And remember that mistake? Well, guess what? I have a way that I can automate this process, but I'm here right now. So I'll say destination path. Destination is team. And this is what I need to update because it had an old path in this skill. And now we made it go one level further for reasons I cannot talk about live, or at least right now. And now it's good to go. So these are all the skills. Now they're a mess. There are different ways to organize them, which you see in the skill map. And the most important thing is that your AI is reading the me.md, the vault map, and the skill map every single time that you set something up. So every time I start a new chat, that's my goal is I'm just hitting my hotkey and it's saying to read this exact thing. And then it's off to the races. It knows me, it knows what to expect. So that was only one question. I wanted to give it a lot of bandwidth though to show the specifics of how AI OS actually is going to work if you choose to have it in your actual vault. And notice again the separation between AI OS and the rest of my notes. Now, it can read everything else, and yes, it can put notes into my projects area, which it often does. But all those chat histories, all those files, everything else, AI OS. Anytime I feel like it's getting too noisy, then I can always get rid of that history and start fresh. And I won't feel like I lost much because my knowledge is in ACE, Atlas Calendar Efforts. Okay, there you go.
Nice. That separation of your knowledge and AI knowledge is just so critical to reduce that overwhelm and those kind of feelings of unfamiliarity with who generated what. This is great, Nick. I also just want to acknowledge too that the AIOS folders will and the skills themselves will be included in the product when it launches in May. And again, we'll be taking you through each step along the way through lessons to break it down to help you personalize it, and that it'll be sustainable along the way and help you build trust, as I noted in the chat too. We have got, oh, I also just want to note, we're going to continue recording the Q&A. So if you have to hop off at any point, know that it'll be recorded and that since you joined here, you'll be able to access the recording later too. So with that, we'll keep the Q&A going. We've got a great one from Dorothy here who asks, I'd love to hear your thoughts about participating in linking your AI to buy this course without prior linking your thinking experience.
Well, I let's see. I think you would be
Like if
fine.
they're not a workshop alum or something too. Yeah.
I think you'd be more than fine. I just want to give it a moment to think that through. You'll be fine. What you saw on screen is my actual Ideaverse. It has, I don't even know, 15,000 notes. The starter kit that will give you, the AIOS starter kit, is not as opinionated to like have all this stuff. but it's going to have the section that you need and that then you customize. And then all you do is you move your notes into it, or you take what worked and then you throw that version back into your notes, and then you make that the version that you work from. A lot of different ways that you can approach it. There is not a requirement to have any other linking your thinking touch points. So you should be fine. I'm just thinking in the back of my mind that the only advantage to having some of that is this won't be the first time that you've, heard of producer and inner guide, that sort of stuff. But as far as the principles and frameworks, they're really meant for beginners. Like these are the things that everyone needs to know.
Nice, Nick. Thank you for that. We've got a question here from Lila who asks, can I have an AI-only folder inside my main vault? I'm asking in terms of using Claude Cowork to access that folder when it's in my vault, while it wouldn't necessarily have full access to all of the other vault folders.
So basically, we're talking about a similar situation to what you see on screen, but then when starting a new chat, a new conversation. One moment. I think it's getting blocked. Hold on. New task. Oh, it's because I already have the new task open. All right. So the idea here then is the question is getting rid of these folders. And the only folder then that you're going to point AI to is actually going to be this AI OS folder itself. So that becomes the only thing that it can have access to and nothing else. And that should work pretty well, I would say. There are just a few touch-ups that you'll put at that point. Then you would put if you're using something like Claude, you make sure that it's at the root level of whatever that folder is so it can easily find it. Same thing with the me.md, make sure it's at the root level. You would do something to that effect. And that's a nice way to do it. And can be a pretty elegant way. And maybe that's a nice starter step. And then you can see how things work for you. Now, where that might fall apart is when you want to share a note and it's like a journal. So are you actually going to just like duplicate the note and throw it in your AIOS? Because now in your main like Obsidian Vault interface, if you hit search, you're going to have two notes that say the same thing. And that's where it can get a little confusing. So that's one of those like downstream consequences to think about depending on how you would add content from your main area into your AI OS area.
Fantastic. Sorry, it's just I was having trouble with Zoom for a second there. It's always full of surprises. A question here from, let me see. A question here from Chris. Any easy methods for recording meetings in Obsidian with AI notes?
I think that's the fragile layer. So whatever I tell you today will change because, the app Fathom will have some easier way to do it or this or that. So, how I currently do it is, if possible, if I try to use Fathom and then I'll have a transcript and then I can have I usually just copy and paste the transcript into a note and then have AI analyze that if I feel it's important. I don't feel like I need to do that for every meeting. Now, I can also set up a skill where I just say like, here's the link, do all that for me, like copy and paste into new note, do all that stuff. It is such a fast moving area because that now we're talking about a corporate use case that everyone's like trying to figure out. So there are so many apps like Fathom, so many different note takers, Firefly, all these, you can name more than I can probably. So it's just a moving target, and that is that fragile AI tool layer, and it's going to adjust and update more than our middle layer, the Ideaverse and the translation layer. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you for that, Nick. A question from Tom. How does AIOS fit into or compare to the Carpathian framework that's all over YouTube recently? And you touched on a
Well,
little bit with the AIOS already, but yeah, just to get
well,
specific there.
I'm glad you asked. So let me share my whole screen, and I did do a little test, and let me make this one bigger. So this follows the Carpathian method, if you will. And what I wanted to do is I was like, I've been writing a lot on AI, like all these different things from last year. And I just want to make sure I have all my best sentences, ideas, everything at my fingertips. So let me gather all of those links and then let's throw them in to this cart. Should I go light mode? It feels a little dark for me these days since we've been light this whole time. Um, so this is that Carpathy method, and it's an idea to do these LLM wikis. Think of them as micro wikis, and micro is a very important word. I'm not just trying to rename it. It's because it won't work when it's a big wiki, and that is the pitfall of the this method. So what I had it do is look at these sources, and these are different newsletters, different things I've made, and it's like remaking them, it's formalizing them. Okay, let me zoom out just a little bit. The idea is that you can, if you're researching something, you can download 10, 20 sources. You can give it to AI, and AI will make a wiki out of it. It won't just have those sources, but it will look for the concepts within each source, within each article, within each podcast. And then where appropriate, it will make a note and put it into something like concepts. So now we have these concepts here, and we have entities, things that have been mentioned here, and then sources, different things here, topics, and we can see all these coming up. So here's one, AI maximalists versus AI mindfuls. This is something I mentioned once in a newsletter, and it's saying it's a concept. So a couple things I've noticed here. I have not found this to be effective for this exact purpose. So it narrows the scope of where the Carpathy method has value. Where it has value is if you want rapid knowledge acquisition of a new topic. In this case, I was trying to like synthesize my existing knowledge. And what it did is it's like, that idea that you leave an area and then someone cleans it up for you. And you're like, but that was my mess. And I knew exactly where everything was. I knew exactly, all this. Now it's all strange to me. This is all strange to me. And then I have to read it all. So basically, this just created a mountain of cognitive debt. I'm like, I don't want any of this. So this has not been helpful at all. But if I wanted to learn organic chemistry from scratch, heck yeah, then I would work on this. And so essentially what it does and why it's limited is because what it ends up doing is it creates an index. So every single note that's inside is given, it is linked to within the index. So if we see how many notes are in the outlinks, I just need to go over here. So 31 outlinks, if you will, which is about how many we have in this wiki outside of the admin files. So this in theory looks good, but here's the problem. The index, after you get to 250 to 750 notes, no longer works. What do I mean by no longer works? That amount of words, that amount of links means that when the AI is reading the index, it's going to start skimming and missing points. That's the whole purpose for RAG, retrieval augmented generation, if anyone's familiar with that. It's how AIs um, find know what the next word to write you is because they look at the closest next word in proximity in this multi-dimensional meaning space. Um, the index falls apart at around 500 notes. Therefore, it goes back to the thing it was doing anyways, which is RAG. So micro wiki for a reason. It only works for small curated sets of notes. In that capacity, it's fantastic as a rapid knowledge acquisition tool. But outside of that, it's just going to fall apart. You can't have this giant index that's just every note. That's just the whole thing in general. And then the way that the AI interacts with it, instead of being able to index everything, you lose trust in the index because it starts skipping notes. Trust falls apart. So it's better just to stick with the RAG. So for people who are thinking, oh, I could apply this to my own, like all my notes, that's the worst thing I can imagine ever doing in my life. Hey, let's take all my words and have AI completely reorganize everything, change every single word, and say that that's the way to organize things. So I just think that's really what needs there needs to be some caution with how to work on how to apply the Carpathian method. But I do think that if it's knowledge acquisition, that's the way to do it. Okay, there you go.
Right. Thank you for that, Nick. I'm just dropping the link to the course in the chat for Ursula and anybody else interested here too. Nick, I've got a great question here from Neil, and he noted Tiago Forte recently did a test where he only got about 80% accuracy uploading his para structure using AI. What were your results so far with the metadata janitor? And is this required for ACE, or is this something that will work with other people's file structures as well?
I haven't seen that. Um, but like I had mentioned that I had all these the metadata janitor that cleaned up all of my metadata. Um, Accuracy was 100%. I mean, I think so that's why I don't know exactly the context must not be the same, but like you work with it, you tell it the rules, back and forth, do some small tiny tests. And it's like it knows how to handle the notes now. Oh, but I did this and now that, and okay, now we figured out here. So then you just get to 100%. And then that's, I don't know what to say. Like if you're, yeah. So I'll have to watch that because I don't know what it's trying, maybe trying to like recreate from scratch a folder system or something. And then how it compared to how, he manually placed each file. Maybe that's it. Um, which is a cool experiment. Again, like it just depends what you're trying to accomplish. But what I what we try to hit on in the problem section in the traps is that the more that you allow AI to organize on your behalf, the more confused you will become. So that's, I mean, like, where's that note? Uh, I mean, I guess you could ask AI, and it's like, oh, yeah, I just have to ask AI. Okay, open the app, ask AI the question, even if you type it out loud, wait, 10 seconds for a response, get the response, then go to the note. Whereas if you know where it is, you just go there, and then that's like 3 seconds versus 30 seconds. So yeah, I mean, I do think that's a fun experiment, and I did something similar with like renaming screenshots, if that's what we're talking about. And I was like, okay, thanks for renaming the screenshots, but like the subfolders that you made, marginally helpful because I didn't make those names, and now I'm a little confused where my like those screenshots are, and so that's just something that is not being talked about enough. Like AI organizing for you, no, like only in very specific capacities. Otherwise, you're just going to end up more confused.
Thank you for that, Nick. We've got a question. It surfaced in a few different ways here, but one from Sarah here. So, Nick, are you essentially using Claude Cowork in your live vault and not a clone? And if so, how did you get to that level of trust, and what kind of considerations are involved with something like that?
Yeah, well, I have plenty of backups. So there are two couple vectors of to talk about here, but the first one would be, am I worried about losing my notes? I'm not because I have the backups and I can compare them if I need to, but then the other part is, am I comfortable with what AI sees in my notes? And that's a far different question. One, I'm comfortable with my backup process that if AI does something, I can do it. If I ever feel like I'm missing, a note, or I think I'm missing 10 notes, I'll be able to track that down with my backups. The other one is, am I okay with what it's seeing? And that's That's a bigger leap. Couple things that I am okay with. Not being trained on my data is an important one. Although, yeah, I don't mind too much, except for like I would say my journals. Like that's the part I wouldn't want that trained. But a lot of what I have to say, a lot of my writing, um, I wouldn't mind. But the other part is the reason I wouldn't mind is because of what I'm doing is I it's okay. It's an advantage. I have a unique situation where there is a small advantage to be indexed by like AI, like in the past people would be by SEO, I guess. But that being said, I don't want AI to train on my data, and I forgot the last little bit of that. The training. Oh, and then how long that info is on their servers. And so Claude has been clear that it's 30 days, and so that seems to me to be decent. And most often I'm not having it look through every note in the Ideaverse. And even when it does, it's usually trying to do some sort of like shorthand and keyword and different ways. So it might have access to everything, but there's also trust. And I forget, I won't be able to articulate their policy. They're not just constantly like the AI is not just constantly going on its own and searching all my notes to the best of my knowledge, because that would just burn a lot of energy. So it's only when I ask it to look broadly at a ton of notes that it would even be in on their servers for a while. So for the most part, whatever the rolling 30 days is, there's not probably too much of my notes that are on their servers. But again, it's all just what we're comfortable with. So I think the idea is that my data is not being trained is what made me most comfortable. And then the servers having a 30-day timeline was the other one. And that was from last year where I developed that comfort level. But
That personal privacy policy. Yeah.
yeah, but it's always about keeping AI's words in a place that I know that's where they exist because I don't want to lose my own thoughts. So that's the third vector too. So um, making sure you can always separate out the AI generated notes. And if a note's generated somewhere else, I have a piece of metadata where I'll say like LLM generated. And so then I have another way to always call out like if a note, like if it's a project note or something, I want to make sure it's an AI project generated note. So I know that just so I kind of understand what to expect on the inside. Okay.
Good. Awesome, Nick. This was really helpful. And that was overlapped with several questions here too. That was good. Nick, is this explicitly just for Obsidian, or could something like Capacities or Notion also potentially be used here?
Well, yes, to an extent. Now, the great unknown for all those apps are it's like I just can't tell you because um they're they're fragile in ways that I don't know without knowing specifically every tool. I can speak a little bit more to Notion, and I just know there's a hidden invisible database that you never get to see. And that's where, all the magic happens. But can that be read by, yeah, sure. I know you can export to Markdown. It's not just like this magic export and everything's like perfect. It's like a lot of horrible artifacts and things that you have to deal with. So that's that's um that's funny. That gets me more worried than most of, the AI concerns. It's like I want the notes. I want to be able to see them. Like, where are you, my note? Like, where do you live? And then that's much more valuable to me.
Nice. Thank you for that, Nick. We've got a question from John. Do you need a Claude subscription explicitly for this, Nick?
For the course, I imagine.
Yep.
Um, Not specifically. No, any tool. So Gemini is a good one because usually people have some sort of free, sort of more liberal. Google's more liberal with how they give that because that's not their bread and butter business, so that they can provide more. And I, like on screen, I guess I'm still sharing everything because if you use LM Studio and you can download a local model, you can get closer. Now it's going to be a lot. It's never going to be as fun and friendly and easy But you can see um, I have this model here. This is the Google. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Oops. This is a way to download local free models, open source models. Here's one from Google, Gemma, I don't know. And then it takes longer, and then I give it all the details from the lower back note in here in my Ideaverse, and then we can have that conversation. And this one actually is responsible enough to say, I'm an AI, not a doctor or a physical therapist. Now, the advice a little bit different, and I didn't do a back and forth the whole time because it just takes a little bit longer. But this is right now, 2026. This is a fairly small local model, and I'll say, let's just say this isn't true, but my back just flared up while bending over. And let's see what happens because you'll see like it's not as easy. At first, it's going to reload the model. It's downloaded on my computer already, which took a while, but now it needs to reload. So let's pretend it's loaded and then we can see just how long it takes to come up with a response. Now, if it was Claude, it would probably be 5 seconds. And now it's loaded, so it's processing and it's taking some time just to process. So we can always come back and see what happens here. But you don't have to have a cloud subscription.
Nice. Thanks for that, Nick. Speaking of like especially subscriptions on and the various online AI tools, is local AI covered in this training? I don't want to share notes with a robot running a data center and who knows who along the way too. So how about local, Nick?
I guess, I mean, that's a good segue because that's what you're looking at on screen right now.
Mhm.
This is a local model. And okay, now it's thinking. So it's taking a lot longer. It's describing its process just like most of the tools do these days, which is very helpful for us to see what's going on. And now it's going to provide some feedback. Can you do this with local models? Absolutely. So yeah. Keep what else? I
Nice.
mean, this will keep going,
Yep.
but you
It
know.
will. We'll let it keep going. But yeah, that was definitely one that a lot of people had both for privacy considerations and for the fact that that again, some people don't want the actual subscriptions and everything too. So this is a great option. Nick, are you using only those skills that you mentioned or also using slash commands in the linking your AI?
Oh, no slash commands. That was funny. In our earlier course with Claude Code, we last year there was a need for some slash commands. Um, there will be some that we cover for those advanced use cases, but the majority of what we're covering does not require that. Yes, I'll show some of the fancier versions that do involve like programming and coding, but the majority is not that. The majority is what you can do just with something like with a local model where you can feed it your own files from your computer. That's what we're going to focus on. So
Nice.
no majors. Yeah, I already answered. Okay, we're good there.
Yep, all good. Yep, all good, Nick. And again, with the skills themselves, they are just in English language or your personal language. They're not code explicitly either, so they're easy to maintain. They're easy to personalize as you go through the lessons with Nick, and that you'll be able to develop your own along the way too. Now, along with that, we had a question here. Let me just see. Sorry, I lost my spot. Nick, how many tokens do you wind up using each month, or what kind of plan are you on?
So I am on a Claude Max plan. I don't know how, I mean, it seems to I barely bump up into it, but we can see here resets. Okay. So by tomorrow, it's going to reset, and I'm using about 50%. So, I mean, there are times where I ask it to do something major and it starts to burn through a lot. Um, and then usually afterwards, I'm like, hey, whatever we just built, if there was a skill, let's figure out how to not make that burn so many tokens and take so long. Like, what's it going to take? And then I'll be like, okay, this part and this part, and then we make it better. And that's just kind of the process. But here's a pretty good example. I'm on Claude Max and only about 50%. So I'm not sure what the actual number of tokens is, but there is that. And, I would say I'm a fairly heavy user, not the heaviest, but that's where I'm at.
Nice. Thank you for that, Nick. A question from Martin who asks, can you meaningfully use this if you don't organize by the ACE file structure at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no prerequisite to use ACE.
Nice. And as you personalize your me.md, you can explain your directory format as well and be able to ensure that the AI essentially knows where to look for within your own personal structuring. Awesome. We've got Nick. Would you mind bringing up your keynote slide that had the pricing card? We've got a great question from Mateusz who he asks, so what does the AI OS starter kit include? The AI OS folder with the necessary files, the skills you developed so far, what else?
Oh, yeah. So, oh, let me make sure. Yeah. So here's the whole pricing card from the website, and we'll just zoom in on that top section. So it's going to start with the downloadable AI OS starter kit. So what you basically saw on screen without all my thousands and thousands of notes, and part of that is going, and so, but what's the AIOS, this sort of structure is going to be included as a starting structure. AIOS, these subfolders, the me.md, Claude, just for people who are using Claude, like things that are just going to get you set up and out the door. Those are the core components of what's included. Along with that is interactive thinking partner auto builder. So as you go through the online videos, you're like, oh, okay, now I get to practice what I just saw. And then you'll say, um, open the auto builder. Let's work on this from this video. And then we'll be able to work on developing the producer skill or the synthesizer skills that you want. Part of it that is, how do you get to the me manual that you want? How do you make sure it works for you? The one that you saw me create today on the fly would not be a final version. It's so you can have a skill, you can have it run and check out all your notes. That's going to get you step one. But I went through 4 rounds until I got to the version where I'm like, yeah, that's going to be solid. All this is integrated because it leads to, all right, I mean, like, here's how you can integrate, here's the system, but what are you actually doing? Like, what would be useful for you? And then let's build around that your AI workflow, the specific AI workflows. If you want that morning briefing, let's look at how that looks. If you want the meaning summary and takeaway and next actions, let's build that together. The 12 self-paced practical lessons cover that. And then throughout, oh yeah, we also have a lesson, but as you can see so often, we're talking about not just all the cool things AI can do, but to make sure that we permission to our level of comfort and confidence. So those are all the parts that are included. I hope that's helpful. And if it's not, then we need to find out. But that's our best attempt at making it clear and tangible.
Definitely. And if you have a question beyond that, again, the website also breaks things down. But if you have questions beyond that, we want to make sure this is an informed purchase for you. We're happy to answer anything at hello@linkingyourthinking.com. And I'll put that in the chat shortly too. But alongside that, Nick, we've had a couple of questions about Claude Code, especially because you acknowledged it too with our previous product too that we had and stuff too. Nick, do you prefer Cowork or Claude Code? And I've got a couple follow-ups, but let's just start with that.
Well, I mean, it's not, they're both, they solve different problems. So Cowork is my day in and day out tool. But if I was a programmer or I was using AI to program, then I would jump over to code. And so in the past, that's what I would do when I created our STTI online assessment, our Sense Makers assessment. It was like the personal part was what is each question? How much is it weighted? All these things that took so much human blood, sweat, and tears. But the AI part was, now how do we make the online, like how do we put that online? How do we make it work? How can I make it look awesome the way I want it to look? And then how can like the results go where they need to go and help the person? Like how can all that work? And so I would have never been able to do something like that. And but with AI programming Claude Code, I was able to accomplish that last fall. So it's just what you need. And what I found is even with some stuff like go to this URL, transfer domain, or, help me set up a website on these like sites. I don't even know what they are, but like Vercel and Netlify, like ways that you can quickly pop up and populate a website. Help me with that. Help me understand what I'm doing here, like those little steps. But even that can be done in Cowork. So I only really go to code these days if I'm trying to actually if there's code being written.
Nice, Nick. Thank you for that. A great question here from Raj who asks, I have issues with organizing my vault and everything. Can I use something like this to help me? And I believe you kind of answered it already with the synthesizer, but yeah, like if you just want to briefly acknowledge that.
Yeah, organizing the vault. Absolutely. You could work it out with Claude. Now, as was kind of mentioned, don't what I would refrain from doing, and it's splashy, like when you see like the a Twitter post or some video, like I reorganized my entire life. But I don't know, let's see where that person is really at a week later. Are they really even? It's like, yes, you can have AI do all these things, but organization is ideation. That's one of the things that we say in the workshop and other places. Organization is ideation. But not all organization is equal. So there is sort of like that metadata janitorial work, but there's also like making sense of things. Well, how do we do that? Well, let's put this thing next to that thing. And if I don't do that, but AI does that for me, I'm losing that. So I'm not making the connection up here. That's fine for your receipts, I guess. Your 2025 receipts, great. But when it comes to your ideas, like you want to be the ones making the connections.
Nice. That's some great advice, Nick. I think that it is. It's essentially ensuring that you're still the driver in this, and AI is at best sort of the navigator, or kind of consulting with you. But that, just like with the AI OS, that your Ideaverse, that you are at the core of this, and I think that's just really key. Nice. We've got a question here from Sabine. I'm curious how you use the me manual file, Nick.
Oh, I use it all the time. So the main way is this. So I use, if you can see it on screen, what's this called? I always forget the
Typinator?
typinator. Yeah, it's
Yep.
just there's a term for it, but a text auto completer. So my most used these days are DNN, DT, DYY. Can I make this bigger? I can't. I apologize. And this SSK. So SSK is what I do whenever I start up a new chat, which we have open now, and I'll hit SSK. And it's saying read the me.md file, also vault map and skill map for relevant context. That's it. It's like upload everything. And so every single session I'll do that. And I notice when I don't do that. I'm like, why are you being so? And, like I get a little angry. But for me, and something else to note is as far as where all this exists, this is probably worth mentioning for those who have multiple folders or areas of knowledge. But I now have, and I can't easily zooming the full Finder window, but it says knowledge here. So it's my knowledge folder. And then these are different subfolders, including my main one, what I call the Ideaverse. But here's that team folder. And, here's what Keaton was talking about, like an AI clone version, and then like a family folder and like different wikis, extra stuff. So when I'm saying read Ideaverse, like the slash there, usually what I'll end up doing is I'll just say go to the knowledge folder. And then so if it has the knowledge folder, then when I say read ideaverse.me.md, what I'm saying is read this file right here. And it has access to it. Um, and that seems to work quite well. So yeah, I'm always loading that. And when I forget to load it and I ask it to do something and it's like thinking a long time, I'm like, okay, oh, what's going on? Why are you spinning up agents? And it's like, oh, because I forgot to tell you that the skill already exists. So that's just I think eventually AI will, get there, but right now it's a brilliant um amnesic thinking entity. It is amnesia all the time, but it's also brilliant, and you just got to kind of work with both.
Nice. And a follow-up from Luke in the chat. Nick, why don't you add that SSK text into the Claude.md? And if you want to hit that just briefly, because we
Oh,
encountered
sure. I
that
mean,
recently.
it's really similar. It's still a one line. So if we go to that Claude file, it's just saying go immediately to me.md, and that's good enough. So I think the reason I put this in, and honestly, I could probably shorten this one is, and that would be enough. I think this is my belt and suspenders approach. I'm like, I just want to make sure, like these three things that I'm noting, that you go to those three things for sure, because those are the heart of the AI OS to make sure it's working.
Nice. Thanks for that, Nick. We've got a question here from Adil. Doesn't the Dossier Builder run the risk of overshooting the context available?
Overshooting the context available. Great question. And so the dossier builder, oh, I guess as it's running, and that's a great question. If we can track back what it did. So it read the main files. Now I have, okay, phase one, reconnaissance, map the terrain, ran four commands. So loading tools. And I'm no expert as I kind of like scroll through this. So I'm just trying to understand, did it spin up agents? How was it burning tokens? List the Atlas folder subdirectories. So it's trying to make sense of where things are. Check personal and statements directories. Look at the YAML fields for different things. I mean, we're just trying to identify what is that dossier builder doing and how might it burn tokens. Now it's starting to read files. And it's found some really important ones. How is it getting top ranked quotes? Because I rank quotes, like I have a metadata field, it knows to look at the top ranked quotes and people and statements and books. So it's, I guess, and it's doing the same with these other areas. I wish, and I don't know a way to understand how many tokens it burned, but I actually don't think it was really that excessive considering like what it looked at. Because when you have your own notes and they're well linked, that's the whole point of an ecosystem of notes. There's gravity around certain notes. Like what is gravity? It's like when there's a lot of stuff around it, in this case, many links, then it can start to understand where things are at and it can intuit um, where to look for the right notes. And then it finds them and it gets a general idea. And I could ask it, go deeper, and it would burn more tokens. But yeah, that's something to play around with. So then at the end of the day, you kind of work with the dossier builder and eventually you get that thing that you're looking for. And so let's look at these different categories. So the different instructions, why it exists, the core principle, just different bits.
Nice. Thank you for that, Nick. We've got a question here. They've been wrestling with wrapping their mind around Obsidian Zettelkasten for well over a year now. The system they've come up with is using a recall app to gather all the info they're interested in to create a massive markdown wiki and then import that into Obsidian and their own atomic notes. Is this advisable of something like this and using Cowork alongside it to inspire and suggest links, or would something else be maybe a little bit more practical? And this individual also noted that they're dyslexic and have autism and ADHD that may contribute to the need for AI assistance with this.
Oh, okay, those are important points. Um, I think it's it's certainly worth an experiment. There's a lot going on there as far as like the complexity of it all. So if I heard correctly, like Recall is one of these apps and it tries to remember everything that's ever. I don't know how it compresses all that information, but somehow you have all this data And I think it'll be a lot. And in fact, I'm looking at the chat, and we're talking about caveman mode, like where you save on tokens because you just like try to have your AI give caveman like really short responses. That's not something I care to do because I'm not bumping up into tokens today. If the landscape changes with AI app makers, and it might be something to reconsider caveman mode. But what you're going to be dealing with recall and downloading all this stuff is some level of cavemanning that, I mean, like high levels of compression are going to be needed. It could be useful. Then you want to think on timelines. So if there's like a daily super log, then you'll have 7 days in a week. So make sure then you have a skill that creates the weekly super log, not to just compile all seven, but to compress all seven into a smaller piece. And then 4 weeks, now you have the monthly super log, then the quarterly, and then the yearly. We have those preset times. You can make up your own, but they do work. And that would be the way to go about it. It's just a good practice no matter where we're going. So that's the extreme case. It's like, let's try to grab everything possible. But that also just works with our regular interactions. Hey, Claude, as a best practice, let's schedule a skill. End of the day, you're going to create that daily log note. How about even better? Create it at the start of the day and then do interstitial journaling. So every step of the way, you just have a little journal in the daily log. And then we are going to do at the end of the week, you're going to kind of like throw up the big themes for me and kind of condense what you need to. So you're hitting on the right principle. Now, as far as how extreme you take it, that's going to be a personal preference. Go ahead and try the big approach. But if it ever feels like, hey, that's starting to become its own overwhelming task, maybe try to back off a little bit and say, I don't need to capture everything, but maybe I can just capture these small aspects, my interactions with AI, and that's what gets logged. And then just see how you can build from there.
Thanks for that, Nick, and some great advice there for Charlie. I also just want to say I admire Charlie's approach here with the using Cowork to inspire and suggest links. Well, again, still having that hand on the wheel, still practicing discernment in this too. So valuable. We've got a question here. Um, do you use some auto triggering skills inside that .claude skills folder, or do you only rely on the skills inside your AI OS skills folder, Nick?
So what's funny is like there's a tug of war. There's gravity. It's like Claude's pretty good about this. Other apps, AI apps are not, and they're not going to get any better. They're only going to get worse. What am I talking about? They want you in their app. They want you entrenched in their app. They don't want you to be able to leave their app. That's why we have to create the AI OS now and prepare for it. Many times I'm like, create a new, hey, I'll do this. Here's my mistake. I'll go here and like Sabine was asking, I won't put that in, and I'll say create a new skill on call it Ideaverse Courier and help me transfer notes from my Ideaverse to the team Ideaverse whenever I invoke Ideaverse Courier by saying like move note to team folder. Okay, that's what I would talk out loud. Then it will create the skill, and I'll be like, where's the skill? It didn't show up on my recents, which I always now have open in Obsidian right here, so I can always see what's new. Like, where did it go? It said it's created, and I'm like, oh, it went, and like I don't even know where it is, but we'll find it together. Um, Claude, it's under Cowork probably, right? Why can't I find the skills? They always move these around, which is part of the. Where are the skills these days? Okay.
Customize?
Oh, do I need to go back? Yeah, yeah. For some reason, they're not
There
in
you go.
settings. I had to go to
Yep.
a tab. Okay. So then we go to skills, and this is older stuff. Screenshot renamer is something I created, but Claude wants you to have your skills in Claude's system, so you're stuck in Claude. Also, because that's not the only reason, but that's definitely a reason. Um, Things work easier, right? But then you're stuck here, and no one else can use screenshot renamer. Why? What if I like if Google Gemini, if I start using Gemini, then I can't use this thing. So I want to make sure that very like almost nothing's in here. In fact, like these things are only added by Anthropic, so a skill creator. And in fact, my goal is to figure out how much of skill creator can go into AIOS and like how we can pull that stuff away from Claude or any program. But there are parts where Claude tries to pull it back. So yeah, wherever you can, you want it in your system of notes, not over here. This just gets in the way. It confuses things. It bifurcates. There's no single source of truth, all those things.
Right. Thank you for that, Nick. We've got a few more questions. We're crossing the 2 hour mark. I want to get to a couple more. I think these are really valuable, but I appreciate everybody staying on. Again, if you got to hop off at any point, these is going to continue to be recorded. And with that, we've got a question from Greg. He asks, is there any value in having AI look beyond just your actual Ideaverse and look at, say, your activity and bookmarks on browsing, your Readwise, trends, or is that too much debris compared to just keeping it within your knowledge system?
That is a good question. First, you have that capability. So when it comes to like the connectors, you can see what I currently have Claude connected to personally. Click up so Gmail and calendar go in this order, first, second, click up. There are some GitHub things, so it's important to get that connected and tell me like every single time, what am I supposed to do here? Like, because I don't know. Miro, I actually had it doing like very simple work in Miro, but is burning tons of tokens. But it was just cool to know it can actually identify parts on an online application's visual canvas. Go ahead and edit that material. Like you can do that now. Netlify to host a website. Apparently this one, but I haven't seen it work in any way just yet. But I think we'll have that in the future. So these connectors are really nice. And you, oh yeah, this is the one, Claude and Chrome.
Mhm.
So this then allows me to open up Chrome and download the Claude extension there. Then Chrome can browse on my computer and it can look at those things, bring whatever it needs in. Um, so to your question about like getting the bookmarks and that's in the history and those things, potentially, I think it's an experiment. And what I would do is just say, make a list first and then like try to rank where this would be on your list. I think it's a really cool idea. If I had to guess, I would say you might have four other things ahead of it first that you might want to do. Not to say you don't do this, but just we do have to pick and choose because this is great, right? Imagination. It's all about the imagination. What is possible? You've identified something. And if it really excites you and you just want to see if it's possible, go for it. Like, why not? Move it up to the top. Well, if it takes more than an hour, then I'll go back. Okay, that was enough. Now it'll kind of go down even lower. But I scratched that itch I had, and that was fun. So I would just think about things that way.
Nice. Thanks for that, Nick. While you have the connectors open still, a question from Joe. Joe's main concern is with security. How safe is it to grant access to connectors and co-work here? Her work is mainly in top-down producer-specific situations where she needs help, and she could definitely see where some of these integrations could be valuable. But any thoughts there?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's about developing a level of comfort and potentially putting it in context to other um, vector points like Gmail, like Google's like they can actually read everything. Like it's not AI, but it's Google. They have Gemini, they have AI. Like, and how much do we trust what they might do? So there's the reading, but there's also the writing. There's also the deleting. So here, let's look at this. What's neat about some of these tools is you can change how, like, what can they see my profile? Can Claude see my profile? Can it see what's in drafts? What's a label or a tag? And then I can say always allow on these, and then it actually separates the write delete. And I actually put always allow as a test because I wanted to see if it could help me create drafts for a lot of the logistical things that I just don't get to. The tax example is a really good one. So it actually created a draft and sent that email out to my accountant. There was one little hiccup because I had the wrong email address, but once we got that squared away, then I sent that draft. And it's like, I'm okay with that. That's within my, policy of one, safety, and one, like if I'm saying, hey, did we file taxes this year? That's not my like core authentic voice. I'm not really worried about that, that's not linking your thinking. So it's kind of useful to see how can it help jog me in the right direction to get a draft done. But that's a big leap, especially depending on how you think about your email. Calendar's been nice because in my daily briefings, it can say like this is on the calendar and you have this and that. So you can see and hear what's read only and then what needs approval, create, delete, respond, update. So this one actually has a more stringent, the Gmail's pretty loose here, but you can see in the calendar, you have a little bit of granular detail. Now, whether or not this is always followed, I think there are some cases that Keaton was mentioning to me where they weren't followed, where it was pretending it had all the access when the settings were not that. Is that right, Keaton?
Yeah, it was.
So it's something to consider in that case. Tiny tests, and then again, like there's just a certain amount of risk because it's a bit of a black box. We don't know what's on the other side of that black box, but the screen's a black box to a degree. Like I don't know really like how it works. Um, who is like Zoom says no one else is on this call. I don't know that. I don't know who's watching. Yeah, it's we just have to decide like what's useful for us. If you're heavy producer mode, these two are pretty useful, but there's a trade-off.
Yeah. And it'll be part of your personal privacy that you designate along the way. It's part of the process and a key part. So I appreciate you taking us through that, Nick. We've got a question here from Paulo who asks, how would you connect this to an Ideaverse Pro? I already own Ideaverse Pro. Is AIOS, can it be integrated within it potentially? Does it replace Ideaverse Pro? Just some questions there with it.
Yeah, so just so that everyone knows, Ideaverse Pro is a product that we come out with. It's it's for Obsidian, and it gives you kind of a done for you knowledge management system. So how will AIOS be integrated? And this will all be part of a broader offering that comes out later this year called the Light Launchpad, LYT Launchpad. And it'll have at least basically definitely four different mini launchpads. They're not mini in that like that we put our heart and soul and sweat and tears into all of them, but they're like the four launch pads that make up the big launch pad. And AI is going to stay over here, and then Ideaverse Pro is going to stay over here. But what you're going to learn in AI is how to bring it over to Ideaverse Pro. So everyone wins. You don't want AI, you don't want to hear about it in Ideaverse Pro, don't worry about it. But when you're ready for the AI, that's what you get in linking your AI, the course. It'll cover exactly that.
Thanks for that, Nick. Nick, how does this approach work with OneDrive, with OneNotes, with Apple Notes? Can that content potentially be integrated with something like this?
Everything is possible, and especially with with the APIs of AIs, which is MCP. A lot of acronyms. But Model Context Protocol, also created by Anthropic, but able to be used by everybody. I think it's an open kind of standard. And it's just, is there an MCP that connects this AI to Apple Notes? Is there an MCP that does this to that? So there's so many people out there that are interested in AI. Usually something is created. It might just be on a GitHub repository. So you have to say, do I trust that? I don't know. But anything's possible. But there's always extra layers when you're dealing with apps that don't let you see your files and your notes and like where does it actually live? What does it look like? Let me just see the file. So there's always oh, I love my see I have a lot of, my favorite quotes, structure must be earned, organization is ideation, and the APIs of AIs, which is MCP. Yeah, put that on the tombstone.
Nice. And as we see in the chat too, that CLI tools are great for integrating things like that when it comes to Cloud Code and Cloud Cowork too.
Okay.
Very helpful. We've got just a couple of last questions here too. One of them was, so you don't need a Claude subscription, but with the skills and context files, will they work in something like LM Studio? Because we saw you put it, you pasted it directly in it. But could you
Mm.
integrate the translation layer potentially in some of these tools as well?
There will be limitations, and those I can't speak to because I haven't spent a tremendous amount of time in the local model. So remember this, ages ago, we asked a question. So it thought for 40 seconds and then it started typing. And I don't know if you remember, if you saw it, but it was like typing word by word. So that was not within the 40 seconds. So let's say the whole thing took, currently on this 2020 Mac Studio, it took 90 seconds for all this to come in. And then I'd try to have a back and forth this way. So it's just a little bit slower. It's doable. What can we add? I can attach a file. So I could say, how would this look? I would give it the Dossier Builder. Well, what's it going to build from? It can't, I'd want to attach a folder, but that's probably too much. So it's going to be hard to synthesize a great number of files, I believe. That would be a limitation you'd have to work around. How can I find my top 10 files manually and then I'll feed it into local. And then from there, it'll be able to work for me. So I think there's a bit more manual effort if we can't open up a folder. And I wonder if and when that will change. I wonder if I'm just missing it and it's a skill, it's something that we can already do and I just can't understand like how to connect things like eject model settings. So those are the open questions when it comes to local. That's a fantastic question. There will be some limitations because if what I can see here is I can't point local at I can't point a local AI at my folder of notes, which is really what empowers it. So without that, there are some trade-offs.
Thank you for that. We've got a question here. First of all, really quick, how much memory is in that studio, Nick? And I think if you're not, yeah, you can go to the about this Mac right there real fast. And
Oh,
whoo, nice.
2022. So excuse me. But yeah,
Yeah,
so I loaded this one up. 64
awesome.
gigabytes back in the day.
Great. We've got a question here from Carvan who I want to make sure and answer here. I currently don't use Obsidian. Do I need to buy Ideaverse Pro first, or would this offering be useful without Ideaverse Pro?
Oh yeah, you don't need Ideaverse Pro. There are arguments to say that it would be useful. You don't need Ideaverse Pro. If you're using Obsidian, I think that's the more easier entry point. You just want plain text files, markdown files, and then you'll be off to the races. Yeah, you don't need Ideaverse Pro for this.
And the lessons help you get started. Yep, it'll work out that way. A question here from Ramudis who asks, what about like let's say Word documents, PowerPoints? How would you potentially manage them in a Vault? Do you have any recommendations there as far as attachments?
Attachments, I would. I actually haven't had to deal with. Okay, there are two parts to that question. One is personal knowledge management, and then the other is, am I asking AI to do anything with these documents? So my initial thought was, because this is AI that we're talking about, that would I would throw a Word doc in there and see just a single file and just see like how is it processing, how is it reading this. I imagine it could probably do a pretty decent job because Word's the document is a known file type that AI, I'm sure, has to know how to work with. Side note, a doc file is a zip file. I never knew that until recently. PowerPoint, you could see how it analyzes everything. Um, so those are tiny tests to see how AI works with it. Now, as far as like where you keep these things, that would be in a separate folder. I would recommend it's a separate folder. You keep your, ecosystem of linked notes, that plain text link note style. Now, I do have images in here. For example, there was an image even in what we looked at today. Where was that? Under the creative, we had this one in here. And so this lives in an images folder in my extras X folder. So you can have images in here, and certainly you could throw whatever you want in here. You could really have PDFs. You could have your Word docs in here. It's going to bloat up this one place that makes it harder to just to duplicate, because now you're duplicating instead of 100 megabytes, maybe it becomes like 1 gigabyte. And so that adds up if you're keeping backups in different spots, and just it feels a little bit bulkier. So have a different folder, and you can just as easily point AI at a separate folder at the same time. So that's what I would say from a knowledge management angle as it pertains to connecting with AI.
Nice. Thank you for that. A question here from Dave. This is our last one for the day here. How could this be used to surface not just notes, but also to-dos? This is a part of my Notion workflow that works really well, where I have multiple views. That might be an antique concept if AI can present things to me the way I want them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think that would go back to, it would be the amount of fun that you in particular, it was Dave, right?
Yep.
That you, Dave, in particular, would have with creating your own type of morning briefing. And so in this case, you have it look at where your tasks are, how they're ranked, and all that stuff. And it can provide you exactly what you'd like to see. It can actually make a really pretty HTML file. Now, HTML is a little bit less editable and all that, but you can really play around with what's possible. You could then click complete, and you could have it then percolate that update wherever it needs to go. Now it's going to burn tokens to kind of do that. Oh, hop on to Notion and then like click complete over here. But you could, like, these are all things that are currently possible. It's just how you set it up and playing around with what you actually need.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Nick. One other thing I'll note with that, going back to our big abbreviations earlier, with MCP, certain task managers like Todoist and some of the other ones can actually integrate this, including ClickUp actually too. Should you want to start linking those more actively, so they're not just a passive nudge in the summary, but actually doing it. Not for everyone's use case, but it's possible. Definitely. And that was all of the questions that we had today. This was fantastic. I just want to thank each and every one of you for asking these great questions along the way. And it was my privilege to support it. One thing, Nick, is you want to share some final thoughts. I also just want to ask Dan if he wants to share the QR code on screen a little bit after as we round things out. But before that, Nick, any final thoughts?
Oh yeah. Just a couple things. I didn't save this. I didn't go over this in the core section, but there are some quick takeaways. Those who have organized their notes, rest assured, even if it ever feels overwhelming, you are light years ahead of everyone else. Those who have used folders actually have given themselves an easy way to partition information. Those who have used links have given AI a web of meaning to understand what matters. Those who have files over apps own their outcomes. Those who know the rules, IDI, imagine, discern, integrate, won't get wrecked by AI. And guess what? I didn't write this yesterday. I wrote last year, and it's still true because we focus on the timeless principles of knowledge management. So with linking your thinking, you can be very confident that you're building AI for the future that supports you in the present. So anyways, I'll turn it over to the rest of the team. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
Really. And Dan, if you just want to screen share the QR code one more time. And again, if
Yes.
anybody has any questions, I am going to go ahead and throw our email address one more time too. We're happy to answer anything. We want this to be an informed choice. And I hope you consider joining us.
Thank you so much,
All right.
everyone. This is our QR code right here, our site. We have the recording up later on. If you have any more questions beyond the things you see on the page, email us, hello@linkingyourthinking.com. We'd love to support your thinking. And hey, we had a great time today. Yeah, let's keep it going. Thank you so much, everybody.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Just